Have you ever caught yourself rearranging your thoughts, your words, or even the way you sit, just to fit quietly into the background of someone else's life? It's a heavy, exhausting way to live, but so many of us do it every single day without even realizing it. We walk into a room and instantly scan the faces around us, trying to figure out who we need to be in that moment just to feel accepted. We spend years holding up an invisible mirror to the people in our lives, our friends, our family, our colleagues, hoping that the reflection they give back to us will finally tell us who we are and that we are enough. We look for our value in a passing smile, a brief compliment, or a message left unread, letting our entire mood for the day hang on how someone else decides to treat us. But what happens when the person holding that mirror doesn't really see you? What happens when you look into their eyes for a sense of safety, and all you find is a blank stare, a flicker of judgment, or a distorted version of your true self? It is a heartbreaking reality to realize that you have been trusting your reflection to someone who is looking through a cracked lens. When we give people the power to define us, we are essentially asking them to build a house for our soul, using materials they don't even possess. We twist ourselves into knots, trying to be softer, quieter, or perhaps louder and more impressive, just to get a nod of approval from someone who might be too caught up in their own world to notice the depth of our presence. This constant striving is a quiet thief. It steals your peace, it chips away at your confidence, and it leaves you feeling deeply hollowed out at the end of the day. You sit there wondering why you feel so lonely, even when you are surrounded by people. And the truth is painful but simple. You are lonely because you have abandoned yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. You have traded your authentic self for a fragile peace, and you are waiting for an apology or an acknowledgement that may never come. You cannot find your worth in the hands of the people who dropped you. You cannot expect someone to value your heart when they are completely blind to its beauty. It is time to stop asking blind eyes to appreciate your light. It is time to take that mirror back. The journey of healing begins the moment you realize that your worth is not a negotiation. And it is certainly not dependent on how well you can play a part in someone else's script. You do not need to prove your right to exist, to feel, or to grow. Before we dive deep into this conversation today, I want you to take a slow, deep breath. Let go of the tension you've been carrying in your shoulders from trying to hold everything together for everyone else. If you are ready to reclaim your own narrative, to stop auditioning for a place in lives that don't cherish you, pause right here. Leave an affirmation in the comments below to lock in this moment of choice. Write down these 4 simple, life-changing words. I belong to me. Let that be your anchor today. Let it be the first deliberate step in shifting your gaze away from the crowd, away from the critics, and back to the only person who has been waiting for you to notice them all along. Yourself. It usually starts so small that you barely notice you are doing it. You walk into a room, you feel the atmosphere, and without a single conscious thought, you begin to adjust your volume. You soften your edges. You might share a creative project you spent weeks working on, pouring your entire heart and soul into every detail, only for a coworker to shrug it off with a casual remark. Or perhaps you gather the courage to tell a close friend about a deeply personal milestone, a quiet victory over your anxiety, or a dream you are finally brave enough to chase. And they immediately blink, change the subject, and start talking about their own day. In those quiet, painful moments, a subtle but devastating shift happens inside your mind. You don't think to yourself that they are distracted or incapable of seeing you. Instead, you immediately start to question your own worth. You begin rewriting your stories in real time. You edit your enthusiasm, deleting the parts of your joy that feel too big or too loud for them. You water down your achievements, making your victories sound smaller and less significant, just to ensure they don't make anyone else feel uncomfortable or envious. You become the editor of your own life, cutting out the most beautiful, vibrant paragraphs of your existence just to make your story digestible for people who aren't even interested in reading the book. This constant, daily adaptation is an incredibly heavy burden to carry. It drains your emotional energy until you are completely empty, because you are trying to solve an impossible, exhausting puzzle. How to make someone appreciate a masterpiece when they don't even have the capacity to understand the basic colors you used to paint it. Think about how much energy it takes to constantly scan the room, guessing what version of you will be acceptable today. You become a shapeshifter, changing your opinions, suppressing your natural laughter, and hiding your true feelings just to keep the peace. You stay silent when you want to speak up, because you are terrified that your raw truth will be too much for them to handle. But every single time you edit your joy, every time you swallow your anger or hide your sadness to keep someone else comfortable, you are participating in your own erasure. You are telling your inner self that its reality doesn't matter, that its voice is an inconvenience, and that its survival depends on the approval of people who only love you when you are convenient for them. The tragedy of this exhaustion is that it never actually works. No matter how much you rewrite your story, no matter how many chapters of your true self you tear out, it will never be enough for someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. You can spend your whole life rewriting the lines, changing the font, and polishing the pages, but you cannot force a closed heart to open up and receive you. You end up sitting in the quiet spaces of your life, looking at the fragments of the person you used to be, wondering how you became so disconnected from your own spirit. You realize you have built a version of yourself designed entirely to please a crowd that was never really looking at you to begin with. It is a profound exhaustion that goes straight to the bone. The tiredness of wearing a mask that doesn't fit, of speaking a script you didn't write, and of living a life that belongs to everyone else but you. You deserve to speak without translating your soul first. You deserve to share your highest highs and your lowest lows without wondering if your emotional reality is going to cause someone to walk away. The people who truly belong in your life will want to read every single page of your story exactly as it is written, without asking you to cross out a single line. It is time to put down the red pen, stop editing your beautiful, messy truth, and realize that your story doesn't need to be rewritten for anyone else to validate it. Think about the last time you went completely out of your way to help someone, entirely ignoring your own burning fatigue, just to hear them say thank you. Maybe you stayed hours late at the office to finish a project that wasn't even your responsibility, watching the clock tick past midnight while your own dinner grew cold at home. Or maybe you spent hours on the phone listening to someone else's heavy, repetitive problems, nodding along and offering your absolute best comfort, while your own quiet worries and unexpressed fears piled up like mountains in the background of your mind. You gave away your time, your energy, and your peace, pouring out every drop from your cup until you were running completely on empty. And then, when the interaction finally ended and the door closed, there was just silence. No acknowledgement, no thank you, and no soft return of the care you so freely gave. The silence that follows unreturned effort is incredibly loud. It rings in your ears as you drive home in the dark, and it sits like a heavy weight on your chest as you try to sleep. It forces you to sit face to face with the painful reality that you are putting all your emotional currency into a bank account that doesn't belong to you. Watching your savings dwindle to nothing while the account holder barely notices your deposit. When the applause you are looking for never comes, you are left standing alone on an empty stage in the dark, wondering why you performed so incredibly hard in the first place. You realize that you have been treating your kindness like a currency, hoping that if you just give enough, care enough, and sacrifice enough, someone will finally look at you and decide that you are valuable enough to keep around. This moment, as painful as it is where the illusion breaks. It is the exact moment you realize that the validation you are chasing is a mirage. You can pour your entire life into the vessel of another person, but if that vessel has a hole in the bottom, it will never, ever be full. You will find yourself constantly running to fetch more water, running yourself ragged, trying to fix an emptiness that was never yours to heal. We double our efforts when we feel ignored. We work harder, we smile wider, and we anticipate their needs before they even speak them, believing that the next grand gesture will be the one that finally earns us a permanent place in their heart. But the cycle just repeats, leaving you more depleted, more invisible, and more resentful with every passing day. When the applause fades and the room goes cold, you are forced to ask yourself a terrifying question. Who am I when I am not being useful to someone else? For so many of us, our entire identity is wrapped up in being the helper, the fixer, the strong one who never needs anything, and the one who always shows up, no matter how badly we are hurting inside. We mistake being needed for being loved. We think that if we stop doing, stop fixing, and stop performing, we will disappear entirely or be abandoned. But love that requires you to abandon yourself in order to keep it is not love at all. It is a transaction. It hurts deeply to realize that the people you love might only love the version of you that serves them. But facing that truth is the only way to set yourself free. When you stop performing for an audience that doesn't applaud, you finally get to step off the stage. You get to take off the heavy costume of the tireless giver and just breathe. You begin to understand that you do not need to earn your right to rest, to be seen, or to be cherished. The care you have been so desperately throwing at everyone else is the exact care you need to turn back toward your own fragile heart. It is time to let the empty room stay silent, to stop begging for a round of applause from people who don't know your worth, and to finally become the one who validates your own existence. When we live our lives constantly looking for external validation, we often end up burying the truest parts of ourselves deep underground. We hide the pieces of our soul that feel too loud, too sensitive, or too demanding, terrified that if they ever see the light of day, they will scare away the people we love. We tuck away our boundaries, our passions, and our genuine reactions under a heavy, suffocating mask of agreeableness, smiling through our discomfort just to keep everyone else at ease. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung once noted that thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. When we take a moment to really apply this perspective to our relationships, we begin to realize that the harsh judgments or the cold indifference of others often have very little to do with our actual value as human beings. People judge, criticize, or ignore based entirely on their own limited views, their personal histories, and their own unresolved internal struggles. When someone fails to see the beauty of who you are, it isn't a reflection of your invisibility. It is a reflection of their own eyesight. They are projecting their own internal limitations, their fears, and their unmet needs onto you. And the tragedy is that you have been accepting their flawed projection as your absolute truth. You have been looking at a shadow cast on a wall by someone else's fire and believing that the dark, distorted shape is who you are. We take on the blame for their inability to love us properly, assuming that if we were just a little different, a little better, or a little more accommodating, their behavior would change. But the shadow belongs to them, not to you. When you try to alter yourself to fit their projection, you are trying to fix a mirror that you didn't break. You spend your days analyzing their moods, trying to decode their silence, and wondering what you did wrong, without realizing that they are simply operating from a place of their own internal lack. They cannot give you the presence, the validation, or the understanding you crave, because they do not possess it within themselves. It is an incredibly liberating, though painful, realization to understand that someone's rejection of you is actually just a statement about where they are in their own life journey. It has nothing to do with your worthiness to be loved. By recognizing this, you can finally begin to separate your identity from their reactions. You can look at their indifference not as a verdict on your value, but as a boundary of their capacity. You stop expecting water from a dry well. You stop allowing their shadow to darken the vibrant colors of your inner world. This shift requires a gentle compassion for yourself as you undo the years of believing you were the problem. It means standing firmly in your own reality, even when the people around you are casting shadows of doubt, irritation, or neglect. Your light does not depend on their permission to shine, and your existence does not become less real just because they choose to look away. When you stop hosting their projections, you give yourself the space to breathe, to step out from the dark corners of their expectations, and to stand fully in the warmth of your own self-acceptance. It is time to let their shadows belong entirely to them, to stop defining your heart by what they are unable to see, and to recognize that the only light you ever needed to find your way was already burning inside of you. To break this exhausting cycle of seeking validation, we have to travel backward in time, moving past the layers of protection we built up to the version of ourselves that existed before the world told us who we should be. Think back to your childhood, or perhaps a quiet time in your youth, when you pursued a hobby or spent your afternoons doing something simply because it brought a pure, uncomplicated joy to your heart. Maybe you spent hours sketching daydreamed worlds in a notebook with broken crayons, building intricate structures out of blocks on the living room floor, or just walking through the neighborhood, completely immersed in the magic of your own thoughts. You didn't do those things for a grade, a thumbs up, a performance review, or a word of praise from an adult. You did them because your internal world was rich, safe, and entirely self-sustaining. You were enough for yourself back then. You didn't look at your creations through the eyes of a critic, wondering if they would be deemed worthy by someone else. Returning to that original self means embarking on a journey of rediscovering the activities, the quiet thoughts, and the small pieces of magic that make you feel truly alive, completely independent of anyone else's opinion. It means remembering what you loved before you were taught to love what made you popular, acceptable, or safe. Somewhere along the way, as we grew up, we learned that our passions had to be productive, or that our traits had to be approved by the people around us to have any real value. We traded our curiosity for compliance and our joy for acceptance, slowly drifting away from the core of who we actually are. When you begin to return to yourself, the world might feel a bit unfamiliar at first. You might feel a strange sense of guilt when you sit down to do something just for you, without any intention of sharing it, selling it, or using it to impress someone. But that guilt is just the old conditioning leaving your body. It is the feeling of breaking a habit that kept you small for far too long. Reconnecting with your original self is like finding an old, forgotten key in the pocket of a coat you haven't worn in years. It fits the lock to a door inside your mind that has been shut for decades, holding all the raw, beautiful pieces of your identity that you locked away to keep them from being judged or broken by people who didn't understand them. This return is not a sudden, dramatic transformation. It is a slow, gentle homecoming. It happens when you allow yourself to listen to the music you actually like, even if others call it silly. It happens when you express an opinion honestly, without looking around the room to see who agrees with you first. It happens when you choose comfort over appearance, peace over drama, and authenticity over approval. You are reclaiming the territory of your own mind, weeding out the expectations that others planted there, and allowing your own natural desires to grow again. You do not need a permission slip from anyone else to be the person you were always meant to be. The child you used to be is still waiting inside you, holding all the blueprints of your joy, your resilience, and your truth. By turning your attention away from the demanding voices of the crowd and listening to the soft, steady whisper of your original self, you begin to heal the oldest wounds of neglect. You realize that you never actually needed to find yourself in the eyes of others, because the person you were looking for never truly left you. You were always there, waiting underneath the noise, ready to welcome yourself back home. It hurts in a way that is incredibly difficult to explain when your deepest, most painful growth goes completely unnoticed by the people you love. Right now, in this very season of your life, you might be working incredibly hard on your emotional well-being. You are doing the heavy, invisible lifting, learning how to pause before reacting, practicing how to set boundaries, even when your hands shake, managing the overwhelming waves of your anxiety, and consciously choosing internal peace over explosive conflict. To you, this is a monumental, earth-shifting internal victory. You know the exact amount of tears, sleepless nights, and quiet courage it took just to change a single old habit or to say no to something that drains your spirit. But to someone who is fully used to your old, accommodating patterns, your beautiful new boundaries might look like coldness, selfishness, or distance. They might criticize the changes you are making, mock your sensitivity, or completely ignore the immense, exhausting effort it took for you to heal yourself. They might look at your quietness and accuse you of pulling away, when in reality, you are just gathering enough strength to keep yourself whole. If you measure your progress by their acknowledgement, you will constantly feel like you are failing. You will start to believe that your healing doesn't matter because it isn't making the people around you happy. This is the painful distortion of trying to let others grade a test they didn't even take. Your growth is not a public performance designed to win an award or a nod of approval from an audience. It is a deeply private, sacred renovation. You are tearing down the old, rotted walls of people-pleasing and laying down a strong, solid foundation of self-respect. The construction is messy, loud, and uncomfortable, and the only person who needs to live comfortably inside this new structure is you. When you expect someone else to validate your healing, you are asking them to see a world they have never visited. They cannot see the battles you fought in the quiet safety of your own mind. They cannot see the moments you chose to be kind to yourself instead of falling into old habits of self-blame. When you accept that your efforts do not need to be seen by anyone else to be real, the weight on your chest begins to lift. You stop waiting for them to say, "I see how hard you are trying." You become the one who looks in the mirror every night and whispers, "I see how hard you tried today, and I am so incredibly proud of you." You start celebrating the small, unseen victories, the text message you didn't send, the argument you chose not to participate in, and the moment you allowed yourself to rest without feeling guilty. These are the quiet stones that build a life of true autonomy. It takes a beautiful kind of bravery to keep choosing growth when no one is clapping for you. But that is exactly how you prove to your inner self that you are doing this for you, and you alone. Your healing is yours to keep, yours to protect, and yours to cherish. You no longer need to translate your progress into a language they understand. Let them misunderstand your boundaries. Let them call your peace distance. Keep doing the quiet, beautiful work of putting yourself back together. Because the only view of your life that truly matters is the one you have from the inside. When you rely on the people around you to tell you that you are doing well, you hand over your internal compass to individuals who don't even know where you are trying to go. Imagine trying to navigate a path through a dense, unfamiliar forest using a map that someone else drew entirely from memory of a completely different city. You will get lost every single time, running in circles, feeling increasingly frustrated and exhausted, while wondering why you can't seem to find your way out. Reclaiming your compass means taking that map back and setting your own deeply personal standards for what a good, meaningful day actually looks like. It means deciding that your direction is determined by your own inner values, rather than the shifting winds of other people's expectations, moods, or temporary approvals. Think about how often you have changed your direction just because someone gave you a look of disapproval or stayed silent when you hoped for encouragement. You might have had a clear vision of what you wanted to do, but the moment someone doubted you, your compass spun out of control, leaving you feeling completely paralyzed. We let the opinions of onlookers dictate our speed, our choices, and our destinations, forgetting that they aren't the ones walking in our shoes. When you internalize their doubts, you begin to doubt your own footsteps. You start walking slower, hesitating at every turn, constantly looking over your shoulder to see if they approve of the way you are moving forward. But their approval is a moving target. It changes depending on their day, their stress levels, and their own unfulfilled desires. Reclaiming your internal compass means anchoring yourself in the quiet truth of your own experience. It means checking in with yourself at the end of the day and asking the questions that truly matter. Did you speak kindly to your own heart when you made a mistake today? Did you honor your body's need for rest when it felt heavy with fatigue? Did you take just one tiny, quiet step toward a personal goal that brings you closer to your true self, even if that step was as small as writing down a single line in a notebook or taking a moment to sit quietly by the window with a cup of tea? Those small, internal victories are the true metrics of a meaningful life, far beyond any external validation the world could ever hand to you. When your compass is firmly back in your own hands, you stop asking for permission to live your life. You stop looking for a green light from people who are too afraid to move forward themselves. You begin to trust your intuition again, listening to that soft, steady voice inside you that knows exactly what you need to heal and grow. It takes a beautiful amount of courage to follow your own light when the crowd is pointing in a completely different direction. But it is the only path that will ever lead you home to yourself. Your journey belongs to you. And the only person who needs to understand the direction you are heading is the one holding the compass. There is a profound, life-altering freedom that comes with finally accepting that some people will never truly understand you, and that it is absolutely not your job to spend your life educating them. You can pour your heart out. You can speak as clearly as you know how, and you can give them every ounce of your gentleness. But if they are committed to seeing you through a lens of judgment, your words will always fall short. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung beautifully captured the true essence of this personal autonomy when he wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Choosing what you become means deciding, once and for all, that your sense of self is no longer up for public debate, and that your worth is no longer a prize to be won by the highest bidder. When you adopt the deeply grounded mindset that you belong to yourself, you stop asking for permission to occupy space in this world. You stop apologizing for your preferences, your unique timeline, your sensitive heart, and the firm boundaries you have to set just to survive. You become the sole, undisputed owner of your emotional real estate. And you finally realize that you get to decide who is allowed to enter, who gets to stay, and who must be asked to leave. For so long, you may have lived like a tenant in your own mind, constantly checking in with landlords who didn't care about your comfort, trying to pay rent with your peace just to stay in spaces where you were barely tolerated. Saying, "I belong to me," is the moment you reclaim the title deed to your own soul. Think about the sheer weight that lifts from your chest when you stop trying to convince people to love you. You no longer have to explain why you feel the way you feel, or why you need time alone to heal the quiet aches inside your heart. You stop trying to fit your vast, beautiful emotional landscape into the tiny, rigid boxes that others have built for you. When you belong to yourself, you are no longer stranded at sea, tossed around by the waves of someone else's unpredictable moods or cold silences. You become your own safe harbor, your own anchor, and your own shelter from the storm. You look at the person in the mirror, and you make a sacred promise. I will never leave you behind just to keep someone else close. This power doesn't make you cold, and it doesn't mean you stop loving the people around you. Instead, it means you finally start loving them from a place of fullness rather than a place of starvation. You no longer approach relationships like a beggar, hoping for a few crumbs of attention or a fleeting moment of validation. You walk into the room as a whole person, fully aware that your value was established long before you walked through the door, and that no one in that room has the authority to take it away from you. You learn to stand tall in your own truth, wrapped in the quiet dignity of your own self-acceptance. It takes an incredible amount of bravery to look at a world that is constantly demanding you to be someone else, and to softly but firmly say, "No, I choose me." It is a quiet revolution that happens entirely within the boundaries of your own heart. Every single time you honor your true feelings, every time you walk away from a dynamic that requires you to shrink, and every time you whisper those words to yourself in the dark, you are building a life of true freedom. You are stepping out of the shadows of codependency and into the clear, bright light of your own independence. You are finally home. You are finally safe. And you finally know that no matter who walks out of your life, you will always have the one person who matters most. You belong to you. Creating a life where you truly belong to yourself requires building a sanctuary deep within your own mind. A quiet, sacred space where the heavy opinions, the biting critiques, and the cold indifference of the world simply cannot reach you. Think of this sanctuary as a shelter you build with your own two hands, piece by piece, using the raw materials of your core values, your deepest self-compassion, and the undeniable truth of your lived experiences. For years, you might have left the doors to your mind wide open, letting anyone walk in and trample all over your peace, leaving their muddy footprints of doubt and insecurity on the floorboards of your soul. But building a sanctuary means putting up walls of protection, establishing a boundary that says your inner peace is too valuable to be disrupted by people who do not care for your heart. When someone offers a critique that feels completely unjust, or when they cruelly withhold the warmth and understanding you so deeply deserve, you no longer have to stand out in the storm and let it freeze you. Instead, you can take a step back, retreat into this internal sanctuary, and remind yourself of the solid, unchanging facts of who you are. The fact is, you are incredibly resilient. You have survived every single dark day you thought would break you. The fact is, you are doing the absolute best you can right now with the tools, the strength, and the knowledge you currently have. By anchoring your mind firmly in these gentle truths, the chaotic external noise begins to lose its power over you, gradually fading away into the background until all that is left is the steady, calming rhythm of your own self-assurance. Imagine this inner space as a room filled with light, where the air is clear and every corner is safe. In this room, there is no need to defend your choices, no need to explain your pain, and no need to apologize for being human. You can sit with your flaws, your mistakes, and your regrets without the fear of judgment, because the voice ruling this sanctuary is one of ultimate kindness and understanding. When you cultivate this space, you start to notice that the storms raging outside, the passive-aggressive comments from a coworker, the sudden coldness of a partner, or the constant expectations of a family member, might still blow against the windows, but they can no longer shake the foundation of the house. You are safe inside your own care. Building this sanctuary takes time, and it requires you to actively choose what you allow to live inside your mind. It means making a conscious decision to sweep out the old, toxic narratives that other people handed to you. The voices that whispered you were never quite enough, never quite smart enough, or never quite worthy of love. You replace them with your own soft truths, creating a soft place to land when the outside world feels harsh and demanding. It is a daily practice of returning to your center, breathing through the discomfort, and reminding yourself that your mind belongs to you, and you get to decide what gets to occupy your thoughts. When your internal sanctuary is strong, you no longer walk through the world feeling exposed and unprotected. You carry your safety with you wherever you go. You can enter difficult rooms, face complicated situations, and navigate challenging relationships, knowing that you have a beautiful, secure home to return to within yourself the very moment the pressure becomes too much. You become the guardian of your own emotional well-being, standing at the door of your heart, protecting the peace you worked so incredibly hard to build. By choosing to nurture this quiet space, you are telling yourself that your comfort matters, your healing is sacred, and your mind is a place of absolute safety. Moving forward into this new chapter of your life, the ultimate goal is not to stop caring about the people around you, nor is it to build cold, unyielding walls that completely isolate you from the rest of the world. The goal is something much more beautiful. It is to completely change the source of your emotional fuel. For years, you have been walking in the dark, waiting for someone else to step forward, strike a match, and light up the path ahead of you. You have relied on their warmth to keep you moving. And every single time their light flickered or went out, you were left stranded in the shadows, frozen, and unable to take another step. But walking forward in your own light means you finally learn to carry your own torch. You stop waiting for a rescue team that was never coming, and you become the one who illuminates the darkness for yourself. You start intentionally investing your precious time, your limited energy, and your beautiful, deep capacity to love into relationships where you are genuinely seen, heard, and valued for exactly who you are, without any conditions attached. You stop trying to force open doors that have been locked against you, and you start walking through the ones that open easily, welcomed by people who cherish your presence rather than tolerating your existence. And on the heavy days when you feel the old, familiar urge to seek validation creeping back into your chest, the moments where you find yourself wanting to bend over backward just to make someone notice you, you can stop. You can take a slow, deep breath. Press your feet firmly into the grounding earth beneath you, and repeat the quiet truth that changes absolutely everything. You whisper to your own heart, I no longer look for myself in the eyes of those who do not see me, because I finally, truly see myself. You realize that the search is officially over. You don't need to wander through the world begging for crumbs of affection. when you have a feast of self-acceptance waiting inside your own soul. You take a step forward, and for the very first time, you aren't looking back to see if anyone is watching, approving, or applauding. You are walking simply because you have a destination of your own making, a future built on the solid foundation of your own self-respect, and a life that feels completely authentic to the person you are becoming. This final step is where the true healing takes root. It is the moment you step out of the shadows of your past, out of the exhaustion of trying to please an endless crowd, and into the clear, warm, bright light of your own independence. You look back at the version of you who started this journey, the one who was so tired, so anxious, and so deeply lost in the expectations of others, and you feel an overwhelming wave of gratitude for their bravery. They kept walking so that you could arrive here today, fully whole, fully present, and fully free. You are finally home. You are finally safe. And as you lift your head to look at the open horizon ahead of you, you take a deep breath and claim the truth that will guide you for the rest of your days. I belong to me. We have journeyed through the heavy shadows of seeking validation, through the exhausting pages of rewriting our stories for others, and into the quiet, beautiful clarity of our own internal sanctuary. And now, as we stand at the very edge of this conversation, the noise of the outside world begins to settle into a faint, distant hum. The crowded rooms, the unreturned efforts, and the eyes that looked right through you lose their grip on your spirit. You are left standing in the stillness of your own presence, holding the pieces of your life, not as fragments of someone else's judgment, but as the raw, beautiful materials of your own independent future. This is the exact moment where the learning shifts into living. It is the moment where the words we have shared cease to be just a comforting melody in your ears and become the actual, steady foundation beneath your feet. Healing is never a straight line. And the truth is, there will be quiet afternoons or lonely evenings when the old habit tries to call you back. You might find yourself reaching for your phone, waiting for a specific name to light up the screen, or rehearsing a conversation in your mind just to make yourself sound a little more acceptable to someone who handles you carelessly. When those moments come, and they will, it is not a sign that you have failed. It is simply a sign that you are human, and that the old paths are well worn. But now, you carry a torch of your own. You have a compass in your hands, and a sanctuary in your mind. You can catch yourself in the old pattern, gently place a hand over your heart, and remind yourself that you no longer live in the spaces where you have to shrink to fit. Think of this epilogue not as an ending, but as a sacred contract between the person you were when you started listening and the person you are becoming right now. You are making a promise to the younger version of you who spent so much time hiding in the corners of other people's expectations. You are telling them that they are finally safe, that their light is no longer up for negotiation, and that they will never be traded away for the fragile price of someone else's comfort. You are stepping into a life where your joy can be as loud as it wants to be, where your boundaries can be as firm as they need to be, and where your sensitivity is recognized not as a weakness, but as the very depth of your beautiful humanity. Before you close this chapter and step back into the rhythm of your daily life, let us seal this journey together. Let us create a permanent marker of the choice you are making today, a testament to the boundary you have drawn in the sand of your own life. If you are ready to fully step out of the shadows of codependency, to stop auditioning for a place in lives that don't cherish you, and to firmly walk forward in the warmth of your own self-respect, take a deliberate pause. Pause right here. Look at how far you have already come, and leave a final, powerful affirmation in the comments below. Write down these words. Let them echo through the spaces of your mind, and let the world know exactly where you stand. I choose to see myself, and I choose to set myself free. Let that comment be your signature on this new chapter. Let it be the anchor you look back on whenever your confidence wavers, or the external noise grows too loud. You are walking into a future where you are the author, the audience, and the ultimate judge of your own worth. The search is over, the performance has ended, and the lights on the old stage have finally gone dark. You are home, you are whole, and you are beautifully, completely your own. Walk forward boldly, trust your own footsteps, and never forget the truth that changes absolutely everything from this day onward. You no longer look for yourself in the eyes of those who don't see you, because you finally see yourself. You belong to you,